Hi, welcome back to Jonesy Chats Wrestling. We're back today, back for our first podcast since WrestleMania. It's a big week in wrestling. I'm not alone. I'm joined by some fantastic contributors. Let's bring the first one in. None other than NXT Steve. Hi, Steve. How are you this evening?
Very good, man. Very strange surroundings to be back on this channel. It's been so long, man.
You know, it's like on this channel, you don't just get the one, we always give you more. So let's add our other panelists tonight. None other than Mr. Josh Hayes, former booker, writer, referee, commentator. You've done quite a bit in wrestling, trained by Lance Storm. Always great to hear your opinions, very in depth and stuff like that. But welcome in, bud. How have you been as well?
I've been all good, man. It's great to be back on here. We were talking right before we went on the air. I haven't been around since we did the WrestleMania review, so it's good to be back. Very good.
It's always good to have you both on here and good to discuss it. What a crazy week in wrestling. So we'll start really with WWE. So WWE at the moment, coming off that Clash of the Castle pay-per-view. Obviously, NXT, you were there. I was there. What would you say was your overall thoughts of the show, Steve, as you left the show? Were you overly satisfied? And what did you think sort of the main event, crucially?
Yeah, so aside from the main event, I was just generally entertained with the show. I thought it went down really well. The results, a lot of them, like from when we did predictions on the SCW channel, a lot of them were quite different to how we predicted it, which is always a nice surprise because you don't want to be 100% right on these kinds of things. But yeah, apart from the main event where I felt, as much as I'd love to have seen Drew win it in the UK, it's one of them booking decisions really, and it leaves me intrigued for what the future holds for WWE and how they will eventually take these titles off of Roman.
I agree. I think the thing with it for me, obviously, you got that atmosphere all day of building Drew up, all these video packages, all this work of it's in his hometown. That they play on the sympathy with the cancer video, all this other stuff, and then you got the even theme music, like the Broken Dreams theme music. To do that, it was a very ballsy move from WWE, and to end the pay-per-view with Tyson Fury sinning, they gave a lot of bells and whistles in that match. The ending wasn't particularly the best. It's a shame it took away from the match. What about you, Josh? You obviously watched it at home. What were your thoughts of the build and everything, and the payoff of Roman retaining yet again?
So the two matches for Clash that I had my eyes on were Sheamus and Gunther, and then McIntyre versus Reigns. And for me, even though Sheamus is Irish, Sheamus and McIntyre were the two hometown heroes. Sheamus started most of his career early on in the UK. So for all intents and purposes, by a global perspective, he is a British guy. And so the minute Sheamus lost the IC title match, I was like, McIntyre's winning the title. I thought they would want to send the crowd home with something happy. And so, yeah, when McIntyre, he was in Cardiff for a week straight doing all these media events and stuff like that. And then he loses. And not only does he lose, but what really surprised me was the way right after the match, it's almost like he's fine losing. This chase that he's had to get that title back, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do a little karaoke with Tyson Fury. It's all going to be good, man. I was shocked by that. And I mean, I'm kind of biased towards the UK. I thought after not having a pay-per-view there for 30 years that sort of would be WWE's way of making up for not having one, was by giving, one of their guys a big moment to close out the show. And for me, the whole thing, it kind of felt like a massive middle finger to the UK, because it's no, we're not going to give you anything you want. And for me, I heard fans after the main event audibly on camera chanting AEW and stuff like that. So it's not the type of heat where it's oh, I'm so mad, but I can't wait to see my hero get his revenge. I'm going to keep watching to see what happens. No, it was this is stupid. I'm never watching this again.
Yeah, I agree. I think you made some fantastic points. They very much built everyone's hopes up. The whole day around me was Drew was winning. To do that. And the trouble is, you get into this trap where every single pay-per-view, the finish is the same with Roman having help. And it's just the same thing again and again. Roman is at that point where he's at a tier where nobody can beat him, which means there's not a lot of contenders there. For me, I said yesterday that instead of this Tyson Fury thing, the only way they would have got any momentum back from that crowd was having Kevin Owens come out and then make that save, or at least coming out attacking Roman Reigns. It wouldn't have fixed the issue totally, but you would have obviously got that pop because people love Kevin Owens since under Triple H. Do we think that this is a point now where Roman's almost too far with a belt, and do we see him ever losing this belt within, say, the next year maybe? I'm slightly concerned of where he's going to drop it now, I'll be honest, because I thought this was the best chance for him to drop it. What's your thoughts, Steve?
I was watching one of the interviews that Triple H did with BT Sport earlier on, and by the looks of it, their whole idea is they want to do Roman versus Rock at Mania, and have the title involved, which it's a match that doesn't need a championship. It can be Hogan Rock would never had a championship involved. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them spectacles that's what I say. It's just one of them spectacle matches that doesn't need anything on the line apart from the match itself. And yeah, but I say, by the looks of it, Triple H, that's the goal. That's going to be what it is. And by the looks of it, Roman Reigns is going to stay champion until at least after Mania.
What about you, Josh? What do you think, mate?
I agree with what Steve said, and I've been talking to people about this. If the plan is to do Roman versus The Rock, the only title that needs to be on the line is who the true tribal chief of the Samoan dynasty is. And my thing is, as far as building up baby faces, you're not going to have a more strongly built up baby face than what you had with Drew McIntyre going in that class match. So I thought that would be the one where they get the belt off Roman. They haven't had a babyface champion on top for a while. And so it'd be a little something different. And then, yeah, sometime around the beginning of next year, they start planting the seeds. Roman Reigns has his eyes on The Rock. Don't need a belt involved because that is a marquee match.
I agree with you guys. I think the thing is, if you do put that belt on the line, that answers the winner already. Like, the winner will be clearly Roman Reigns. Rock's not going to do multiple matches. I don't think WWE are clever enough to do that. So I agree with you guys. I'd be much more a fan of the backup plan of them doing Cody Rhodes versus Roman, in all honesty. But as I said, I think the thing with it, they've put themselves in this corner where nobody could beat him. That whole greatness that he's achieved, he's a megastar. You can see he's a megastar by his promos and stuff like that. That's not been given to anybody else. He's making the rest of the roster look a bit like a total joke. I don't know where Drew goes next. This could take up to a year for Drew to get even back, but I don't think he'd even get back to the level he was. If they do another UK pay-per-view next year, and this is the whole finish Drew again, which is what I've heard they may do, you're not going to go into it thinking Drew's got a chance, are you? And the thing is, it'll be too late this time to pay it off. Have you guys got anything else you want to add before we go on to some other stuff?
Just to add on to it, it's like it also leaves questions about the Rumble, because obviously the Rumble winner gets the main event at Mania. And if they're planning on doing Rock Roman, what is The Rock going to be in the Rumble? Is The Rock going to win the Royal Rumble so he gets a shot at Roman? I mean, are you almost foretelling the answer to that? But then as well, I've just found this listed. This is the list of everyone that Roman has beaten for that title, right? So the list is Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar, Riddle, Goldberg, Sami Zayn, Finn Balor, John Cena, Edge, Rey Mysterio, Cesaro, Daniel Bryan, Kevin Owens, Jey Uso, Braun Strowman, and The Fiend. It doesn't leave a lot of names left for him to have as a challenger.
It doesn't. I think you make a good point there. My dream scenario, call this crazy. If I was WWE and booking it now, get the belt off Roman somehow. If you don't want to be pinned, you get him to vacate the title. You fake an injury. You then have both belts split again. Dream scenario of me would be to see Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens both crowned as champions at WrestleMania. You'd have a bit like the Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero dynamic before it all went wrong. And I think that could be something good. It'd be something different. You could still have the Roman Reigns versus The Rock match if you want to do it, but there's two world champions there that will be on TV every single week, and the fans will get behind him. Sami Zayn, for me, he's got so much potential and so much momentum at the moment. The fans are really eating him up since he's joined the bloodline, and under Triple H, he's been incredible, really. He's the one for me that I think they should be getting behind. I don't know if he'll beat Roman Reigns legitimately one-on-one in a fight, but I think him with a belt would be something I would like to see. What's your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, I think, it was from that SmackDown they did in Montreal. Sami Zayn had that Daniel Bryan WrestleMania 30 pop and stuff like that. And that was for me when I realized, oh man, like they actually have a huge star in this guy if they play their cards right. And it does look like Sami Zayn. The writing's on the wall for the bloodline to turn on Sami Zayn. And I assume that when they do that, that's going to be the cue for Kevin Owens, who's recently turned babyface again to make the save for Sami. And then, they've been priming Kevin Owens for weeks now to get back into the title picture with Roman.
I agree. I think that's Saudi Arabia. That's the thing that makes sense to me. That's Roman's next title defense. He's not going to have a champion versus champion match at Survivor Series. I don't think that's going to happen this year. There's nobody for him. Obviously, the belts are still with him. What's your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, it just like Sami Zayn has always kind of been a tweener when it cut for me. Like he's always been, no matter if he's playing a heel or a face, everyone loves him, and loads of people hate him, loads of people love him, and he always gets a massive pop when he comes out. But like you said, Jonesy, believing that he can be the one to legitimately beat Roman, it's really hard to believe at this point when you've had, say, much bigger superstars, like for instance Drew McIntyre in the UK, and he can't get it done due to interference. And it's like I'm just looking at a list here of Roman's last 15 losses, and it's like he lost to Rollins at the Rumble, and then before that you're looking at 2020, and it's like, when's this guy ever going to eventually lose clean?
Yeah, probably not. The problem is you've got to equal out the bloodline, unless there's some internal dissension with that. WWE put themselves in the corner because Roman Reigns is their one megastar they've got on the roster. Like, he is a megastar. You can just tell that he's got that charisma. Same charisma as The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. When they're in the room, you take note of them. What would you do, Josh, with this title then? Would you keep it on Roman for the rest of the year, or do you think that they need to get him off him as soon as possible? And if so, to who?
Now that the whole thing with the Clash has happened, I just don't. And it's nothing against Roman. Like Steve was just talking about, like how they built up Roman. Roman's played his part to perfection in terms of what he's been assigned. But yeah, I over the next 3 months, I don't see a babyface being built up strongly enough to like credibly take the title off of him.
I think it's brutal, but honest. Cody Rhodes is the hope, really, I guess, if they do that. But
Sure.
You're hoping that, and you're hoping that he can come in and equal out the bloodline on his own. Obviously, Drew taking that forward bloodline, that was the only kind of way that they was able to kind of get anywhere close to him. What's your thoughts, Steve?
But let me add this to you, right? See, the way that they're currently booking Austin Theory is that he is the unluckiest guy in the world at the minute. Like, every time he's tried cashing in, he's always been unsuccessful. So, for instance, when he tried cashing in against Brock, unsuccessful. He tried cashing in with Drew. Fury knocked him out. I've got a serious feeling that Austin Theory could cash that in and actually genuinely be successful, because they're booking him on this complete losing streak with this briefcase. And it just, to me, it makes sense that he actually will be successful and he will win with that Money in the Bank briefcase.
I agree with kind of what you're saying. The booking of him has been pretty atrocious. This was the next topic, actually. Perfectly, you brought it up. With the points you said, they don't make him look credible. Ever since he's got that briefcase, he looks like a curse. He's more jinx than Otis. Otis with a briefcase for me. A total laughing stock. I feel sorry for him. Like, he's got not a bad promo. His wrestling ability is okay. He seems to be in a spot which is out of his depth. For me, if I had it my way, they would switch to that briefcase, give it to Sami Zayn in some capacity, because that's the route. You could have that internal dilemma with the bloodline, which would be incredible. Sami Zayn cashing in would work. If Austin Theory is the one to cash in on Roman, I don't know where the hell you're going to do that, because the fans will. I thought they might have done it on Saturday if Drew won, to be honest. I thought that was a route they might have
Main event of WrestleMania when he's fighting The Rock.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the crowd reaction? What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
Imagine the heat.
Oh man, like that would be the type of heat they just got at the Clash. Like there'd be a lot of boos, like go away heat.
He'll have to get on some sort of winning streak though first, and then get some sort of momentum and have good moments. With this briefcase, he's just looking like an opening act.
Wait, but I was going to tell you about that. We were talking about Theory just the other night, but I watched Raw and it changed my mind. His match with Kevin Owens was actually really good. It was a banger. And I don't know if most of that credit goes to Owens, but that was the strongest I've seen Theory look in a while. He still lost, but he was selling the fact that he'd gotten nailed by Tyson Fury. And it wasn't like, oh, I'm injured, I can't do much. It was like it lit this fire up under him. He had this aggression in him I haven't seen in a while. And if they do want to make him look like a legit title contender, that's the Austin Theory they need to embrace. I mean, we'll say 99% of wrestlers can be rebuilt. There's that 1% where they're past the point of no return. If they want to invest in him long-term as a top star, there's potential there. And I didn't think that until a couple of nights ago when I was watching Raw, but it's there.
Yeah, I agree. He's got that potential. He's still very, very young. I could see him and Braun Breaker being potentially the future. It's just when you push that plug, like him cashing on Roman, really, like I just think it's the way they booked him and stuff like that. He's not even in the matches. It's not he's destroying everybody, is he? But it's a shock.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. At the minute, they're trying to keep him sort of partially busy with Johnny Gargano. Now Gargano's on Raw, and they're trying to make it look like he's got this to deal with aside from trying to cash in this briefcase. He's having, like, I've always thought Theory can wrestle. And when he was back in NXT doing this comedy stuff with The Way, I thought that's when he sold me. And I was like, I actually really like him. And then ever since then, I've watched the guy wrestle and I know he can wrestle. But when you start putting him in the ring with the likes of Kevin Owens and we get the stuff that we got Monday, he can build himself to be a legitimate contender. And like I said, if you get him to cash in that Money in the Bank briefcase at the right time, the right moment, he could go on to be a top heel.
He could do. I think he's got the arrogance. I think the crowd on Saturday, it's proven in person that they hated him. They were booing. I just think the booking of him is horrendous. Putting him in these matches like Johnny Gargano, that is a feud that he can't win. Like, because this is Gargano's first match back. He needs to look strong. They should have a bit more sensible placement, but we'll see where it goes. If we move on to another subject in WWE, then, is if we're looking at sort of Triple H then as a whole, since Triple H has come back, what would you say has been some of the pros and the cons? And I will throw that over to you first, Josh.
The pros have been that the shows, especially Raw, I don't know why Raw seems to have gotten more. Well, I think Raw's gotten more attention than SmackDown because before, when Vince was still in charge, SmackDown was usually a slightly better show. But yeah, Raw flows by a lot faster now. It's hard to like explain that, but it's the pacing of the show, and there's little nuances to to why that would be. But yeah, there's that. I mean, there's Kevin Owens is one of those that comes to mind at the top. There's certain wrestlers who you can tell on the show have felt a rejuvenation of their career, a renaissance, if you will. So those are the pros. I mean, the show's much more watchable. The product overall is.
I'd agree. What about you, Steve? What would you say is the pros for Triple H?
He's, for me, my biggest issue was that you need to reset a lot of the stars that Vince has got wrong. So ideally, a lot of the NXT stars. He's starting to do that. Obviously, he's not going to do them all in one night, but it's even little things like Riddle and Riddle and Theory have got their first names back. Hopefully, we get a reinvented Bobby Roode, and like he comes back as glorious Bobby Roode. But otherwise, he's brought back decent wrestlers. So, for instance, bringing back Dakota Kai was a massive one for me because she should have never been released in the first place. And you can tell from the last 4 or 5 weeks since she's been back, she's been doing great stuff as part of Damage Control. So he's doing the right things in terms of bringing wrestlers in. Story-wise, let's be honest, I wasn't invested in Riddle and Rollins at SummerSlam. By the time Clash came along, I was a hell of a lot more invested. So storyline-wise, he's getting it a lot better. It's a shame that he's brought back someone like Braun, and we watch Monday where he destroys 3 tag teams. 2 of them were like that. Of the 4, he destroys 3 of them. Of the 3 he destroyed, 2 of them are former tag team champions. I just thought it was the wrong decision to make for your tag team division because you've buried 6 wrestlers in one moment when your tag team division is already struggling because you've got the belts tied up with the Usos constantly.
I think you made some good points, like with the pros and stuff with that. He's definitely made the product a lot more fun since SummerSlam. The reintroduction of Bayley and Dakota Kai Shirai was genius. A lot of the finishes have been quite good. Like I thought SummerSlam as a main event was really, really well done with the ring lifting. He's done a good job of re-establishing Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, bringing people back. I think he's done all right. I think he's done a really good job from a difficult place, to be honest. I think the fact he's brought these people back, it's great to see these people have jobs back primarily. For me, my only real concern with him so far, he's very much like Vince McMahon, that he starts a storyline and he drops it like halfway. Prime example, Dexter Lumis. He kidnaps The Miz. He then comes back on NXT. He's a babyface. There's no real mention of what's been going on. Next week, obviously, it gets dropped. They seem to drop themselves in these holes and not be able to get out of it. It's just probably a small thing. And I think for me, like they've just got to be continuity with the storylines. I think he's so good, Triple H, that if he's pushing the right people and they're doing all this stuff for the backstage, like all the backstage sort of shenanigans that began on with stuff breaking and all this lot, I just want to see a payoff of it. What's your kind of thoughts of that, Josh? What would you say is the cons of Triple H so far?
Yeah, especially the Lumis one. I was going to talk about that at some point. And the close to Raw, given the continuity of it. So let's say Miz isn't going to press charges against Dexter Lumis. Still, you've got Lumis out there for about 5-10 minutes. No security even trying to come get him or whatever. And you're telling me for like 3 weeks now, they wouldn't be telling their security and kayfabe, keep an eye out for this guy. Like they didn't even have security try to come down, and get in the cage or whatever. Like it's like Lumis. I mean, behind the scenes, Triple H obviously thinks very highly of Dexter Lumis and is trying to elevate him. But yeah, I think that Triple H, if we're going about cons, is that he is better at booking actual wrestling than he might be at booking, the day-to-day operations of a storyline, the creative side of it.
No, I'd agree with you. I think the film with that Dexter film, prime example, was he's come out, so he looks like he's stalking AJ Styles for weeks. You then get somebody in the crowd that sort of attacks AJ Styles. The next week, there's no follow-up to that. It's almost like it's very half-assed, if that makes sense. But we'll see what he does with it. Like, you got to give him this chance. His decision, I think the Judgment Day feud's been all right. Sorry, after you, Steve, go on.
No, I was going to say, he must be doing something right, because obviously as of yesterday, he's been elevated to Chief Content Officer.
Yeah.
He will oversee creative writing, talent relations, live events, talent development, and creative services. So for the short amount of time that he's been doing the job, he must be doing something right, because the company have turned around and gone, we're getting a more positive feedback from fans about the product and about it and stuff like that. So yeah, he must be doing something right.
Yeah.
I think he must be. I think you got to give him his credit. It's much more refreshing than Vince McMahon. The bringing of new talent, establishing stars. I think that's good to see. We just want to see where the storylines go. I'm going to go to the comments here. We've got a few comments here. We're Raleigh Sports Rally. Hello there. Hi, guys in the UK like me. Just found your channel called Stream Guys. Thank you very much. Another one from here. Sad fact, Triple H has brought back 6 released wrestlers so far. It's a lot. He's brought back a lot of wrestlers. And SCW, fantastic channel there. What's happening, guys? Hope everybody's well. Hope you're well, Steve. Thanks for checking out the stream. I've got to mention this, though. The big return of Braun Strowman this past week and sacrificing the tag team division. I know me and Steve last night discussed it quite a bit on SCW's channel. What's your thoughts, Josh, of how the way Braun Strowman came back and who he affected?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I know there's some people in the wrestling community who just aren't fans of Strowman at all. Like, I'm fine with bringing him back because I was one of the ones that was shocked when he got released. But the way they brought him back, yeah, I mean, you really buried your tag team division. I mean, you had those guys all trying to take him on. Like, he got attacked by at least 6 guys tried to fight him. None of them could fight him off, and these are supposed to be some of your top contenders in your tag division. It's like, well, they must not be too tough if you're challenged for the tag titles. The other thing, though, I wanted to respond to one of the comments you just showed that could be a con about Triple H is if he's looking to bring back, tons of people who've been released solely on the basis that, if Vince released them, I'm going to bring them back to make a statement. You almost kind of wind up in that trap that Tony Khan sort of found himself in with the same logic. If WWE releases this person, I'm going to bring them in. And then 3 months later, it's like, I brought them in to make a statement, but I really don't know what I'm going to do with them long term.
I think you make a great point. I've got to say this, though. Obviously, Nick Khan did such a job of releasing all his people and trying to get wages off the bill potentially for a sale. Triple H has now brought all the problems back, or not the problems, all those wages back. Braun and Bray are back. Bray's coming back, I believe. This is huge money. So are WWE now not preparing for a sale? What's your thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I would like to think that Triple H has got his head firmly screwed on since he's been in the business a lot longer than what, for instance, Tony Khan has been in. You look at TK and you can't even recognize that roster anymore from day one, from when AEW first started. There are so many of the original roster that's really not there anymore, barely on TV or anything now. And I think with Triple H, he obviously has an idea and an end goal for especially the 6 that he's brought back. I'd like to think, like I said, with Braun Strowman, I'm one of them people that is not his biggest fan. I'm not a big fan of big guys in general, so I've never been a fan of people like Big Show, Great Khali, Braun Strowman. I think they don't offer, for me personally, they don't offer anything to me. I'm much more of a cruiserweight tag team wrestler fan. Like, I love all that kind of stuff. But I have confidence that Triple H knows what he's doing and he has a story built for Braun Strowman, and it will be interesting to see where it goes.
Oh, it's definitely interesting. Like, just the placement. We know he's going SmackDown, babyface supposedly. Who's he going to attack? That's the $1 million question. But I think it's interesting. Going to go to the comments here. We've got quite a few comments coming in again. We're Raleigh Sports. I've not seen any wrestling fans say, cool, Braun Strowman's back. Nope. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people. The problem is a lot of that was ruined by the internet. The internet had it out last week. He was coming back. If nobody knew he was coming back, it would have been far bigger than it was on Raw. I think that's probably quite a big one. It wasn't like Johnny Gargano that they did a good job of keeping a secret. Going to go to this one, SCW here. Might finally have a theory on the Strowman return. Let's see what your theory is, Steve. Let's put it up here. Looks like a good one. He attacked the tag team division to stop the Usos getting opponents because he's targeting the bloodline. Take the other guys out on SmackDown. We get Braun versus Roman at Crown Jewel. KO doesn't do Saudi shows. Good point. Could happen. That's a logical booking. I think that's a really good point here with this one as well. Is there anything else we want to cover on WWE, or do we want to go straight into AEW and Malachi Black and all the craziness that's gone on? That's quite a big topic.
Just to add to that comment there from Steve about Braun going to Saudi Arabia. So he's brought Braun back to lose in Saudi Arabia. Probably. If that's the goal, then he's really not worth the 7-figure deal that they brought him back on reportedly.
They don't care, do they? They're getting him back. I think a lot of it's a favour to Raquel. They really love Raquel Gonzalez. She's got big plans. They're really behind her. Yeah. She will be challenging probably Ronda Rousey. Look for that match as if they don't know Becky Lynch, Ronda, probably Ronda and Raquel, I'd say, at WrestleMania. They're definitely really behind her. But I agree with you, Steve. It's a lot of money to bring him back. I'd rather that than him chasing around Shane McMahon with slime like we saw last time, in all honesty, and swamps and all this other stuff. So let's see where he goes with this. You got anything else you want to add, Josh, before we get into AEW?
Just that as far as the direction of WWE goes, and we're talking about Triple H in charge, the positives far outweigh any of the negatives that we were talking about. And for me, for the first time in years, wrestling, WWE has in the past, it's felt like a chore to watch, especially Raw. Now, usually every week, I'm looking forward to at least something on the show. You know, oh, I can't wait to see how they do this. I can't wait to see how this plays out and stuff like that. And so that is a very good thing to have.
I agree. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, no, it's exactly that. Like I remember just being a Clips fan and just going through YouTube of a morning because I didn't want to stay up and watch it, and I found myself a lot more over the recent weeks actually staying up to watch Raw because we're getting a lot more better creative, a lot more better narrative and storylines and stuff, and I'm beginning to become a fan of it again and wanting to be more. I need to watch Raw now. Raw is a much-watched show, and it's been a very long time since I've been able to say that about Raw.
I agree with you. I think you made some good points. I think since Triple H coming, Raw is much watchable. They've definitely put some effort into that third hour rather than just let it die on its feet, so to speak. I think the good thing with Triple H and Raw is they are obviously trying new things, which is good to see. Just interested to see where they go next. When these returns stop, there will be a point when they can't keep returning people. This is where we're going to see how good Triple H is with storylines and planning, logistics, and stuff like that. I think, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
No problem. We're going to go to this comment here. We're Raleigh Sports Raleigh. Braun is on SmackDown. Did you see, guys, because of his girlfriend Raquel's on SmackDown? Yeah. I think that's probably part of it, to be honest.
Why bring him back on Raw then? That was my comment yesterday. I don't understand why you bring him back on Raw.
They got too excited. They didn't want to do it in Cardiff at Clash, which is something they could have done. It would have been far better destroying the 24/7 division, getting rid of that once and for all. I don't know what you guys think of that. I'll go to you first, Josh.
That would have been much better. Yeah. I mean, I was actually just reading about the 24/7 title right before we started recording this. That would be a much better way to do it. Yeah.
What about you, Steve?
Like I said, we've all said for a long time they need to reinvent it and go back to it as a hardcore championship. Just to get rid of the names. The name's horrible. The belt design is horrible. I'm looking forward to these new supposed belts that he's having designed. To obviously, it's a new start for the company, so they're going with a new look. And yeah, just hopefully to say that, or even better yet, just get rid of the 24/7 championship and bring back the Cruiserweight championship. That's what I'd ideally want.
Sounds good. You've got enough wrestlers in there, haven't you? Talented wrestlers to do stuff.
Exactly.
Got another one here for Raleigh Sports. Raw's a lot better because Triple H just full stop. No Bruce, no Vince. I think Bruce is still there, but yeah, Triple H is far more got his fingers on the ball. This Royal Rumble WrestleMania season is going to be incredible. I can't wait already. Like looking at the effort they've put in, you're seeing people such as Gunther and Sheamus. That match on Saturday, for example, we never would have seen under Vince McMahon. Poor Gunther would have been probably dancing around with Omos now if Vince was still there.
He was almost buried. Imagine by Vince. If Vince hadn't left, this guy would have been buried.
If you look at how far Gunther's come from that horrible name he was given first to be able to get back to the rest that we know he is, this guy could be a future world champion if he's given the right run. I think he's so good. Like incredible that match on Saturday. I don't know what you think, Josh.
Yeah.
No, he's got his mojo back. Yeah, for sure.
And SCW here. Would everyone be cool with seeing Braun Strowman versus Solo Sikoa at Extreme Rules? It's an okay first match. The finish, you want Solo to look strong. He can't win that match for me. Solo obviously attacking Drew. The natural feud would have been Drew versus Solo, but you're going to Karen and Drew. There's a lot of mess going on with that. What's your thoughts, Steve? Would you like to see it?
If they're going to do it, so it needs to be a numbers game against Braun, and it needs to be Solo Sikoa and the rest of the bloodline that take down Braun, because you can't have Braun lose clean. It needs to be a numbers advantage, and you get just all four of them just take out Braun, and that way Braun still can look strong, even though he's been beaten by four guys, and Solo picks up a win at a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Josh?
It would be a way to give Sikoa kind of his own identity, because his gimmick in NXT sort of, that he was raised on the streets and stuff. So he's more of a street fighter type guy. Because, yeah, I mean, he looks a lot like his two brothers, and he could just kind of fall into the fold and just become the third Uso. But if you wanted to give him sort of his own identity, that would be a way to do it. But yeah, it sort of goes back to what you were saying about how you don't want to bury Braun, but you don't want to bury a guy you just brought up,
It's a strange placement. I really can't see who he's going to feud with, in all honesty, but I'm sure we'll find out on Friday. But let's go to O'Reilly Sports before we hit this AEW even, sorry. I'd love to see Braun versus Gunther Beast, because Sheamus and Gunther was awesome. I thought, that would be an incredible match. I'd like to see that down the line. I think that could be very hard-hitting, and that could be one to challenge in the title. What's your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, one of my intriguing things about the match with Sheamus is that we were just talking about how the Cruiserweight title could be brought back because of the size of a lot of wrestlers nowadays. Most of Walter Gunther's matches I've seen have been with guys who are significantly smaller than him, so the intrigue with the Sheamus thing was somebody his size, seeing how he works with them. Braun would be the same way. I mean, I think Gunther's one of those guys who can get a good match with anybody.
I think that. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, you said this yesterday, and I was like, oh, absolutely, this would be a massive money match. And Gunther would be able to, I think, elevate Braun to a point where I might actually genuinely care about stuff that he does in ring. And like I said, after that Sheamus match on Saturday, it was such a hard-hitting affair. That's what you should do with Braun. Put him in these kind of matches with these big guys and just absolutely have them knock 7 bells out of each other.
I agree with you. I think you guys make some fantastic points. Have you guys got anything else to add before we get into AEW and all the drama and all the craziness that's been going on? What a week.
I'm ready.
I'll go for it, mate.
Okay, so I'm going to start the positive. There is some positive out of this. So let's talk about the big return at AEW this past Sunday. MJF, what a fantastic return, I thought. I thought the entry into the ladder match was a bit strange. It was aces and eights again. I'm kind of a fan of that type of thing. The teasing Stokely Hathaway, I don't know how that plays off. The return right at the end was incredible. The clip that was used and stuff like that. I thought it was absolutely incredible way for him to come back. Although it was obvious to us, we've been saying for weeks on the Wrestling Report, I've been saying for weeks, MJF's coming back. Look for CM Punk to turn heel. What were your thoughts, Steve, of the big return? And did you like what they did in the ladder match?
I honestly wasn't a fan of the return because I felt that what was the point in bringing him out in the mask for him to just be unveiled later on in the night?
Yeah.
I would like to have seen this as kind of like a whole. Remember when Vince McMahon was
The great power.
Vince McMahon was the one, exactly. I felt they could have done something with this with MJF, and you could have had this mystery opponent who doesn't reveal himself, and then for weeks and weeks they could have teased it, and then you could have done the same thing and had a big massive turn where MJF's in the ring and you get all of these guys that Stokely Hathaway is recruited, and then you get Punk come out or whoever and just be like, try and back up MJF. And then MJF just turns around and goes, "It was me, Punk. It was me all along."
That would have been good. What about you, Josh? I like that, Steve.
Yeah, that could work. I mean, I was going to say overall, I'm glad that they could come to terms with bringing MJF back because there was a lot of speculation 100%. Because of the heat between him and Tony Khan. There was some speculation that they were just going to have him stay at home and sit out the rest of his contract. And MJF is one of the, like, as far as organically built stars, he's one of the best ones that AEW has. So I'm glad they could find a way to bring him back.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think let's go to some of the points. So, Steve, what you said, I agree with you. There was all that teasing, they come in the ladder down mask straight away. For me, that was a missed opportunity. I like the drama of finding out, of trying to guess who it is, giving that reveal straight away. MJF for the dancing to pat off that night. Yeah, to be fair, probably wasn't the best. They should have done what you said. I like the intrigue of it though, but to get that payoff instantly, really, I think they did give it away too soon, but let's see where it goes. More importantly, where do we see this going on Dynamite tonight? Do we see is MJF? I think the lazy way out, which is what they're going to do. Put this prediction out there now. MJF's going to have paid Stokely Hathaway. They've got no real alliance, it's no stable. Because when he came out, there's no as MJF. There was no mention of Stokely and how he got to this point of getting the chip. What's your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, that sort of is. That's one thing they could do. I mean, one other thing is whether or not they're going to, I've been reading about this, whether or not they're going to have MJF work or try to work him as a babyface or keep him as a heel. So his interactions with like Stokely Hathaway tonight will sort of be, there's a lot of things we're waiting to see tonight though.
It's an exciting episode of Dynamite. What's your thoughts, Steve, of MJF and Stokely? Where's that going, do you believe?
What is this, like MJF's like third faction in the space of a year? Like, I'm really confused by AEW's creative at the minute, and I struggle to follow along with a narrative for them. Like the wrestling, yes, is really, really good, but like every week it's just chopping and changing and who's meant to be in what faction and who's teaming with who. And it's like FTR were teaming with MJF, but now they're teaming with Wardlow, and it's all just up in the air at the minute. It's a case of, for me with AEW, it's just a case of watching and waiting to see what happens, because I at the minute I have not got a absolute Scooby on what's going on.
I agree with you. It's so up in the air. For me, what I really thought is when we got the Masked Man come out and all this dancing, all this music, I honestly thought that'd be CM Punk under the mask, and I thought CM Punk would blow it in the main event. He'd then cash the chip in and say, it was me, and the mask would get revealed, and then you'd get MJF coming out as a babyface. I thought that was kind of the route they went down. But yeah, I have no idea where they're going to go with this. I think it's interesting to see him back, but I think with MJF, this is the last run before he does go WWE. I don't see him staying with AEW long term. I think Triple H knows he needs MJF for his product. He's the one signing from AEW that will I think can legitimately make a difference. In all honesty, AEW got some fantastic wrestlers. MJF is the greatest talker in wrestling today. For me, it's he would be far more money in WWE, even if it is PG. What's your thoughts on that, Josh?
I think long term, the thing about MJF is instead of having him be the pompous, arrogant heel he's been in the past, that last promo he cut before he was gone, the anti-authority type thing, you kind of have a Stone Cold Steve Austin on your hands if you book it right.
You do. What about you? What's your thoughts, Steve?
That's actually a really good shout. I dread to think that the amount of zeros that Triple H will have to put on a check to sign him, because the guy is one of the best in the business at the minute, and there ain't a lot of people that can even remotely come close to him on a microphone. I mean, like, for me, he almost has like Paul Heyman level aspects of talking on a microphone. So yeah, when his contract is eventually up, he's going to be able to negotiate for some serious money. But with WWE being the biggest, just with WWE being the biggest company in the world, they can afford to put all them zeros on that check.
Yeah,
I agree with you. You can
and they should, and they should.
Yeah, absolutely.
They should finish. Like, I think he's going to be a fantastic addition. If they could do it. I'm going to get to the comments. I think we're still live. Are we back now? Yeah. I know my internet seems to be playing up a bit. We're back now. Okay, sorry for that, guys. I'm going to get to the comments. I did hear what you said. Put all the zeros on the check. Instead of spending 4.5 million on Braun and Bray, spend that 4.5 million on MJF. You'll make the money back and more, I reckon, eventually. But let's get to the comments we've got here then. So, SCW, what's your thoughts of Pat McAfee leaving WWE for the period of time to work with ESPN? I'm gutted. Pat McAfee's been amazing on commentary.
100%.
I guess Byron Saxton probably maybe doing the replacement, I guess. What's your guys' thoughts of Pat McAfee going? I'll go to you first, Steve.
Don't get me wrong. Pat McAfee is one of my highlights of SmackDown every week. I just love his commentary. He's easily becoming one of my favorite color commentators of all time. I imagine with him leaving for this period of time that they'll probably have Corey Graves do SmackDown as well, because no disrespect to Byron Saxton, but Corey Graves is the better color commentator out of the two of them. So yeah, I just imagine that's what we'll get. It won't be as bad, but I will miss McAfee 100%.
What's your thoughts, Josh?
Yeah, it's a big loss. I mean, he was very conspicuous by his absence for me at Clash at the Castle, because the Roman Reigns-Drew McIntyre feud had primarily taken place on SmackDown, where McAfee's calling it every week. So to have him not be there for the payoff match, yeah, I mean, no one can replicate what McAfee brings to the table. You know, he's one of those people who you can tell is just so comfortable being himself, saying whatever he wants and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, it's a huge loss. Nobody can fill those shoes.
I agree with you.
It's like a genuine. I was going to say, it's like having a genuine wrestling fan sitting on the commentary desk. That's what it feels like to me.
It does. I think the benefit, the only positive I could say that might make it slightly better is Michael Cole's been doing some fantastic Jim Ross-like work since Vince McMahon got off his shouting his ear. It's been incredible. I know you're a commentator, Josh. You got to admit, what's your thoughts of the improvement in Michael Cole? He's been incredible, hasn't he?
It's like he sort of had a muzzle on him for the majority of his career. Yeah, we're finding out how good he can actually be. Because I do remember back around, I want to say like 2002, 3, 4, like Michael Cole and Taz were looked at as some of the top commentators in wrestling. And then Michael Cole by like 2010 was being knocked for being like a corporate shill. I think Vince was feeding him a lot of lines. And I think Triple H isn't really feeding him anything every week. And so, yeah, we're hearing him just be able to go out and call wrestling. And it turns out he actually is a pretty good wrestling commentator.
I agree. Going to go to the comments here. We've got another one here from Wirali Sports Wirali. Pat McAfee's a great commentator. His show is awesome too. My favorite commentator is McAfee. Cole, I could tolerate Michael Cole's commentary and Pat was there. I agree. SCW's got a very good point here. Let's go to this. I hope we get Wade Barrett and Nigel Guinness to fill in Pat's position in the meantime. But you think you're right. Corey Graves most likely. Great shout there from SCW. What's your thoughts there, Josh?
I'm shocked that Nigel McGuinness, since they signed him, hasn't ever been elevated up to a higher position than, I mean, right now, I think he just does. It's not 205 Live anymore. I think it's called like Level Up, NXT Level Up or something like that is all he's doing. And yeah, I mean, he's like a legend in wrestling, not in WWE, but like everybody knows who he is. And his knowledge of the business is phenomenal. Nigel McGuinness would be a great choice because he deserves an opportunity like that.
He does. If you've ever seen his documentary, God, that's a touching watch. Have you ever seen that? Very heart-wrenching, where he has to obviously give up his career, get signed by WWE, and then gets released, and then obviously has to start a new career. But I always thought he was a good commentator. I'd love to see him get that rub and that chance. Anything you want to add, Steve, before we get back into AEW?
Just I think that Wade Barrett's doing such a good job on NXT at the minute that it's very hard to try and put McGuinness in that color commentator role on NXT. But yeah, McGuinness used to do some fantastic work, and yeah, 100% could be a fantastic replacement for McAfee. I mean, since NXT UK closed down, I think McGuinness was doing a lot of UK commentary as well. So Level Up just seems to be a waste for him because not a lot of people are seeing his skills, unfortunately.
No problem. Going to go to another one here. Nathan Reader. Yeah, Joe Chat's wrestling. Tomorrow's your birthday. Happy birthday. What a dynamite episode you're going to have to watch. I hope you enjoy your birthday. Great episode to watch tomorrow. Let's get into the drama of AEW then. So what a crazy week. So obviously the press conference, we'll start there first. CM Punk comes in. He is ticked off. You can tell he's looking for a fight. He goes up to one of the reporters. He wants them to admit they're friends with basically Colt Cabana. And then it just kind of blows off, and he's calling out Brian Alvarez. He's doing stuff. What's your thoughts of this, Josh? You've obviously seen it, and how do you think of the way CM Punk acted? Before I give you my thoughts and Steve's thoughts.
Well, where do I start, man? I mean, I think that press conference was proof of how Tony Khan has fallen into sort of a trap that Eric Bischoff was known for being in when they called him Easy E. To where Tony views him as a friend of these wrestlers first and their employer second. I mean, he let CM Punk run that show. He let CM Punk trash certain aspects of his company and stuff, and didn't make any effort to stop him from doing that. He just let him do it. It made Tony Khan look extremely weak. CM Punk, I mean, I'll tell you some things about CM Punk. So this is just my take. He's a drama queen. He is a heat magnet, and he's known in wrestling for being a shit starter. And my theory on him going back to last year is that when he had his big comeback and stuff like that, he could go about a year playing, Mr. Nice Guy, Mr. Politician, shaking all the right hands. But it looks like after about a year, he has reverted back to the same miserable person that he was known for being in WWE. And I mean, if I were Tony Khan, when he started bringing up some of that stuff in the media scrum, I wouldn't have necessarily said, "Oh, you can't talk about that," but it's like, "Hey, we need to talk about that back here. This is not the place to talk about this stuff." And yeah, I mean, it's a case of the inmates running the asylum, because I do think that Khan, he views himself as one of the boys, so CM Punk is just his friend, and so he's not really being a boss the way he should be, and people like Punk will really take advantage of that.
Fascinating insight. What about you, Steve? What's your thoughts of the press conference?
Just saying on what Josh said there, he's making it sound like very Hogan Bischoff from WCW days. I can see where you're coming from. There's me sitting here in a CM Punk t-shirt, by the way, but yeah, no, I know what you mean. That it was almost like Punk was trying to be his friend and protector at the same time, but while also trying to manipulate his way into people believing whatever he wants and stuff like that. And I am honestly, I have no take on what's going to happen now. Obviously the stuff that's come out today is that he could either be suspended or fired by the end of the day. And it's like a self-destruction of AEW, and you're like, how has this managed to happen? This company in 2019 was it had the world at its feet. Just everyone was so invested on it, and it's just it's all just imploded in 3 years. And I honestly, I couldn't tell you what's going to come next. It's a concerning time for AEW as a business. That is, I mean, yeah, like Josh said, Tony Khan does think, by looks of it, I said this yesterday, he does seem like he's one of them guys that, if there's a confrontation, Tony Khan will stand behind the guy in the confrontation, just egging him on, going, yeah, what he said. And that's what I mean. That's how it comes across to me.
I agree with the points you made. I think the thing with it as well is, Tony Khan just lets CM Punk go and sort of totally utterly threw the company under the bus. Any other normal job, if there's customers in front of you and you got your manager there and you do what you did, you'd be fired. For me, not very good. This backstage drama, it's all come to fruition. Everyone's taking shots at each other. Obviously, Hangman Page started a lot of this with the promo on CM Punk. CM Punk never forgot and retorted. And it's a shame, really, when you look at how excited everyone was to see CM Punk nearly a year ago. The fact that people now are just, he's back and he's your world champion. Crucially, he's injured again. So no idea what's going to the world title. For me, I think they're going to suspend him. This is not because they've got a fear of him going to WWE. I just think that Tony Khan won't let him go. Not in scare, because he's one of the main ratings draws they've got. They haven't got particularly loads of people that draw ratings at the moment. They have obviously reduced a lot of people from however they were. Look at Bryan Danielson, for example. The booking of him recently has not been the best, and he was somebody coming in main event in WrestleMania that now is just in the mid card, if that makes sense. But
let's also talk about the fact that they just booked Omega and the Bucks to win the trios championships, and it's like, why?
It's a disaster.
Why have we got to have the Elite be the first ever trios champions? There's enough talent on that roster that deserves a championship at some point. Like, my God, what has the Dark Order got to do? Like, why have John Silver and there's not been a tag team champion yet? I do not know, and it's really, really strange.
What's your thoughts, Josh? Do you think that this is the point of no return for CM Punk? Are you firing him? Are you keeping him? And how duplicate the boys if that's the case?
I think you have to do something, because what you were saying about how losing CM Punk would be, a terrible loss for AEW. It's still, though, you got to look at the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is you can't send a message to your employees that they're running the show. At some point, you have to let it be known that you're the one in charge and you're not going to be disrespected. Not in like a tyrannical way, but just in like, I think that CM Punk he feels like he's untouchable. And you need to make a statement, though, that like no one's untouchable. It's not just in wrestling. Like, an employee who thinks that they run the show is one of the most dangerous things as a boss that you can have, because they can be a massive liability to your entire company.
And the problem is, when he's sitting next to Tony Khan in the press conference and says, "Oh, this is the first ever $1 million box office draw, or whatever it was, because I'm here," this isn't helping the situation, because Punk's trying to build himself as untouchable.
Yeah,
I think that's
It's so disrespectful, because CM Punk had this tone that AEW was just nothing until he showed up. And that's not true at all. I mean, AEW had some great wrestlers, great people. Like, Kenny and the Bucks, everybody talks about them. But yeah, Kenny Omega was a huge star as the AEW champion and stuff like that. All of that happened before CM Punk. Like, All In, which started everything to do with AEW, did not have CM Punk.
I agree with you. You guys make some fantastic points. I think the thing with it, with the press conference, the minute they mentioned EVP, that was where you went over the line. These are people that are high up in the company. You're throwing everyone under the bus, which is just a joke. I know CM Punk's really, really over. And I just felt really sorry for Tony Khan. I don't feel sorry for him, but he looked like he was out of his depth. The people having a go at him, he looked like he was about to cry. And there's nobody there. They don't seem to have a lot of people in the back at AEW that have got experience of running a wrestling company, or anybody that's there. In WWE, you used to have Vince McMahon and Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson would be the right-hand man to go and do stuff. Vince had years of experience in the business. Tony Khan seems to be on his own. I don't know. I know they've got Jerry Lynn and a few other road agents, but he really needs some sort of help. I don't know whether that would have been a Jim Ross, maybe. Jim Ross had loads of years in WWE, running WWE, but it's just a war zone. And obviously tonight on Dynamite, what do they do? What would you do in this case? I'm going to go to you first, Stephen, and then I.
Well, if apparently, like the show itself is doing a Vince McMahon, and it's run into the last 5 minutes before it's got a schedule because of all the suspensions that have come out today. Yeah. So the Bucks, Kenny, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brendan Cutler. And it's I don't know about Ace Steel, but they say that group I just mentioned have all been suspended. So it's like, imagine they had plans for him tonight, and now he's got to completely rewrite this show. There's been other names that haven't traveled that were supposed to be on the show. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one just to see what they actually put out on TV.
What's your thoughts, Josh? What would you do tonight with the world title?
It's impossible to say, because there's no 100% right thing you can do. I'm thinking about about 3 different routes you could go, and every single one of them have a tremendous downside. I mean, it doesn't help that one of your biggest storylines just now was that you had an interim champion. You had a vacant AEW title and stuff like that, so you can't really rehash that storyline. I don't know. I genuinely have no idea what they're going to do, and I can't even tell you for sure what I would do in that position.
This will make you die. Sorry, this will make you die. I've just seen on Twitter here that AEW have resorted to championship contender matches, because apparently Tony Storm will take on Penelope Ford, and if Penelope Ford wins, she will win a future title shot.
Oh no!
Is this what we've done? Now we've reverted to Vince McMahon booking, apparently.
Panic stations maybe, but they've got a few injuries. But I don't know so much in the women's division. Like I think the thing with this is the only thing you can do really for me if you're putting a main event out there, or you need to get that belt off Punk. You don't need it. You don't need interim champions. You should just go straight to MJF. MJF's the number one contender. Do a one-night tournament, get MJF to win that way. I'm going to put the $1 million question out there though. Does anybody think that this is a work? Like you've got Alvarez, Meltzer, and stuff like that. How much is any of it a work, or do you think some of this has just been blown up to get people's eyes on the attention? Because it's the most interesting thing in wrestling at the moment for all the wrong reasons. What's your thoughts, Josh? I know you're nodding your head there. Sources.
I've had this conversation with so many people about them thinking that it's a work. I know a few people who were at All Out. I've got a friend who is friends with a certain guy who wrestles there. One of my really good friends works for a company that it's a sponsor of AEW who was there at the show, and the fight was real. Like it wasn't an angle. Because I mean, for me, like let's say it is a scripted storyline. This is all a work. It's not really a good work. Like you didn't capture the fight at all. It's not on the show. It's not on the show. I mean, that's not the way that I would hope any wrestling company would do a major storyline like that if it is a work. It's not a work. No, that everything that happened at the media scrum, I am confident that was full shoot, and the heat with everything that happened, that was all completely legit.
Wow, what's your thoughts, Steve?
Well, like I said, I'm just trying to monitor Twitter as we're doing this live stream as well, and it's come out that Punk is severely injured after the match with Moxley on Sunday. So so they now need to address the championship situation tonight, and it's like, well, you've kind of killed. This is why I'm saying that the reveal of MJF has already you've already killed it now, because you've now got to vacate the title again because he's injured, and you've now got to do another interim championship.
It'll be Moxley and MJF probably. I guess.
Well, I hope not, because I'll be honest with you, I'm sick of seeing Moxley as AEW champion. I'd like to see, like, for instance, put it back on Jericho and do MJF Jericho, because that was a great feud back like a couple of years ago. Just revisit that, because that actually could be really good.
It could be. It's just really shocking, sad way to see it. I do feel kind of sorry to know we're in this mess. Like, I bet WWE absolutely laughing. And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. This drama is out of control. The amount of people that are suspended. Your trios title tournaments, trios titles are even in the bin. Going to quickly go to the comments here. Riley Sports has got some good points. I'll put them up. CM Punk took shots at Tony Khan saying AEW's crap. If he's not there, not true. Omega Young Bucks, Brian Adams, Colt Cabana, Handman Jesus. So obviously CM Punk had a hit list when he was not eating the bakery. The most over thing in that press conference was where to get your cakes instead of the actual company. It's just drama, isn't it? To be fair, like I don't really know where they go from this. I think. Interesting Dynamite. I feel a bit like back in the day when we had that Raw after the Montreal Screwjob. You don't really know what's coming next, and you got that shoot avenue to see where they're going to go with this. But for me, it's a really, really kind of tough time. Really, I don't know how they come out with this with any sort of credibility. The fact you're having to suspend people, I don't think CM Punk will be fired. It's not because WWE wants him. Funny story, WWE were offered CM Punk originally before he went to AEW, and Fox said they would pay the wages, but WWE didn't want that drama because they knew that what was going to happen has happened, kind of. What's your kind of thoughts of how they're going to get out of this? Is there anything really that they can redeem? Is there anything? Because obviously lost Malachi Black today as well, which is really sad. What's your thoughts, Josh?
I still don't know what exactly they should do, but I will tell you that long term, it is an opportunity for them, because if they can get through this, if they can find a way to make up for it, and Tony Khan can find a way to get control of his guys, it'll kind of establish that AEW can survive anything, because as a promoter, this whole situation is a nightmare. But
have you ever had anything similar to this? I know you used to do quite a bit of promoting. Did you have anything in your promotion? Do you have to name names where you've had talent sort of do this, not to this level, but obviously like world champion, for example, guy missing or refusing to do a job, going into business himself?
Nothing on this level. I mean, yeah, we've had certain guys, who were champion in BLW say they didn't want to work with so-and-so, or they wouldn't drop the belt to so-and-so and stuff like that. But it was always something that we could work out. And I'll say, I guess BLW is one of the most prominent examples. Lewis was always good at making it clear, even to like the top guys, like MVP and Alberto, that it's his promotion, like he's running the show. And I don't think they would have ever done something like that. Because one thing I've been thinking about, they did a press conference after Clash of the Castle too. And just imagine WWE's doing a media scrum like that. And you've got either Vince McMahon or Triple H sitting there next to a guy and he goes into business for himself like that. You really think that Vince would have just sat there and let him do that? He would have pulled the plug on the whole thing. Like you could have been, Jesus Christ, and Vince still would have gotten in his face and been like, "You don't pull shit
Imagine
like
Roman
that."
Reigns did that. That's a fantastic point you just made. That imagine Roman Reigns did that with Triple H in that room. I know he did the whole acknowledge me, walked off. But you can imagine if he threw WWE under the bus. This crowd sucks.
Triple H would have nipped it in the bud. Triple H would have nipped it in the bud instantly.
What's your thoughts, Steve? You look shot. What a
No, it's just it's like. Like the initial question that was asked about Colt Cabana, you would have stepped in instant and been like, "Why are you asking about someone?"
He didn't ask it. CM Punk promoted it. CM Punk.
Oh, I thought someone initially asked the question.
No.
Did someone say, "How was your relationship with Colt"?
No. So that's one thing. So I was skipping through the media scrum and I heard this rant about Cabana. So I wanted to go back and say, oh, what was the reporter's original question about Cabana? There wasn't one, which is one thing I was going to bring up too. Punk went into that media scrum having all this already in mind. He knew exactly what he was going to do. He had an agenda before the media scrum ever started.
No, so basically what happened is there's a guy called Nick Hausman, and he's some sort of journalist. And he goes, he goes, oh, are you friends with, who are you trained on all this sort? He says Colt Cabana. And the minute Colt Cabana's name was mentioned, he goes, you for Colt Cabana, and he just wouldn't let it drop. And from that point onwards, he then went crazy, and he went nuts. But not the best. But I love what you said, Josh, about Roman Reigns.
Like I said, I didn't watch the media scrum, but I just saw Punk rant, but I never actually genuinely thought to go back and check what the initial question was, because I watched something else and someone else said something that they'd mentioned Colt Cabana, and I was just like, that makes even more sense. Like he's obviously gone in with a goal and to do whatever that he's wanting to do. The fact that he's brought up Hangman, the fact that he's brought up the EVPs, all off his own back, and TK's just sitting next to him, just being like, just sitting there going like looking left to right like that meme. You just like, what are you doing, TK?
Sometimes he's even nodding along, which is really bad.
Yeah, it's bad.
Well, like I said, my respect for TK when he done that tweet when Vince retired, and he was like, instead of being classy about it and just being like, look, because of Vince McMahon and WWE over the years, I'm now I now run a wrestling company. Instead, he was just like, oh yeah, I'm now the longest running owner of a wrestling company. And I'm like, man, just have some class and respect, man.
Going to go to this one here. Got a comment here. Great channel, West Coast Podcast. Well, they're officially going to deal with the situation live on Dynamite tonight. Could they just have MJF cash his giant jumbo poker chip tonight and be done with it? I guess you can. Will we see the dance in the mask? That's what I want to know. Like the theme music's the only good thing to come out of it, really. But let's see. I don't know how he goes to Babyface after that. What's your guys' thoughts? Do you want to see the cash in tonight? I don't know who won.
It feels like a lady's Money in the Bank cash in. That the fact that it's used within 24 hours, that's what it would just feel like. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, I know, but it just doesn't make sense for me. I'm intrigued to see what they do, but it's really concerning.
What about you, Josh?
Well, you've just brought MJF back, so I mean, if you wanted to take an opportunity to sort of rebuild him into something, this would be very rushed, obviously. And so that's my only concern is like, they've barely even established why MJF's back and what he wants and stuff like that. So if you just suddenly, in the span of 72 hours, he's suddenly the face of the company and stuff like that. I hope it wouldn't be like overexposure for him, if that makes sense.
I agree. This is going to be a real acid test of Tony Khan's booking and whole thing. Let's see what he can do. I know he used to play Extreme Warfare Revenge and play booking games back in the day. Let's see what he can pull off tonight. Well, Riley Sports has got a lot more details. So it was Nick Hausman of Wrestling Inc. He did not ask about Colt Cabana. CM Punk asked if he's friends with him and then buried Colt. Yeah, he did spend like 4 or 5 minutes going on about Colt Cabana.
Okay.
How
so Colt
Cabana's mum has a bank account with his mum, basically, and stuff like that. It was all totally kind of irrelevant. And then he's just raging by the end of it, really. I think he just wanted to get him gone. But yeah, not very good. I don't really know what they're going to do with this. Hopefully, there'll be some positive out of it. But from what I heard, obviously, allegedly, that CM Punk went backstage. Somebody threw he threw a punch. Somebody threw a chair at one of the Jacksons. There's some hair pulling. There's all this other stuff. So it was almost like Ace Steel and CM Punk versus Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. It was almost like a massive all-out war. Then you got Hangman Page as well.
Do you know what's even more concerning? is that Christopher Daniels got involved, and he's meant to be like head of talent relations.
Wow.
And it's like, and it's like, why is this guy like? Don't get me wrong, yes, he's friends with Omega and the Bucks, but you're supposed to be of a higher authority in the company. Then again, the Bucks and Omega are meant to be EVPs, so you'd think they'd have a bit more like decorum and class about it, and just like genuinely confront the guy. But to go in and start throwing fists it's such a weird thing to do.
Yeah,
It's been boiling though, isn't it? CM Punk's obviously snapped. He's had a hard match. That hard match, if he's injured, he's been in a bad mood. It's been playing on his head. Hangman Page dropping that line and then just literally lashing out. But it's a real shame. I don't know how they get everybody back on it. In the old days, I think they would have put two people in a room and said, iron out your differences. A prime example, back in the day, Jax Rougeau and Dynamite Kid had a fight. They had a proper punch up. Vince McMahon put him in a room, said, don't do that again. They had another one. Eventually, one of them got fired. But I don't know how many times you could do this. I don't know how Tony Khan, if he does keep everyone around, what's he going to do? Put someone on AEW Dark or something? They're going to put on different rosters? You know what I mean? How do you keep people happy? Because this is the point with CM Punk now where he's making enemies constantly and people don't want to work with him, and it's dangerous, particularly if he's one of your biggest stars. Like imagine Roman Reigns said, I don't want to work with anybody. Say Roman Reigns says, I'm not working with Riddle, I'm not working with so-and-so, for example. You just don't hear about that so much in WWE these days. It may happen, but never to this scale. What's your thoughts, Josh?
yeah. I mean, I think they've even said on the air and in documentaries and stuff like that, Vince has, that nobody's bigger than WWE. And the flip side is that from that media scrum, it looks like CM Punk is bigger than AEW, at least in Punk's mind. That's how it works.
Definitely. Well, what about you, Steve? Anything?
No, not really. Like I said, we've pretty much covered it all. It's just I still can't get over it, man. And if I'm honest with you, like it's just such a weird situation and dynamic, and like it now makes you like rethink everything about Punk from the days when he was in WWE and when he dropped the pipe bomb promo, and like everything anyone's ever said about him. And you kind of sit there and go, do you know what? I've always backed Punk. But it looks like the numbers game is actually the rights decide. Like he just seems like he's a bit of a dick, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
Yes.
not the best, to be honest. Like hard to deal with. Fantastic talent. I was really excited to see him back in AEW. Had really bad luck with the injuries. You've got to hope that he hasn't done what WWE did with creative control in his contract, because he must. Tony Khan probably signed that. This is probably why there's a lot of this kicking off. But I don't know what they're going to do with this. I think it's a real shame to people like such as MJF that are having to now play the back foot and getting if they do get the title, it's not really a great transition, is it, to a champion? It weakens it down slightly. Have you got anything you guys want to add before we get to the comments and end the stream today?
I did want to clarify. Oh,
go,
you
Josh.
go first. No, I was just going to clarify back because I've roasted him a little bit. I've always been a huge fan of his wrestling work. But there's been a lot of conversations, in wrestling about separating the art from the artist. Yeah, everything I've ever heard about him, as far as him as a person, is that he goes into business for himself. He's selfish. He's confrontational. He's dramatic. He's very passive aggressive, and just overall kind of a miserable guy. Like he has been known to bring down morale and stuff like that.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, like I've heard stories about it was the famous Booker T one, I think, with Punk, where they talk about carrying bags into the locker room and stuff. And it was like when you hear stuff like that, and you're kind of like, nah, man, that can't be right, man. He can't be that much of a dick in real life, can he possibly be? But yeah, like Josh said, I'm a massive fan of his wrestling. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching him, but I just think bringing someone like CM Punk back and putting him in their world title scene, Punk should have just been back here to just do great storylines. Punk's one of them, like, you should have made him an attraction rather than your champion, because I think you would have probably done a lot better and probably a lot better business.
Yeah, it would have been. If he was given to the young talents, they can learn from him, nurture and all this lot. People have suffered at his hands. Like, look at MJF. MJF lost. That was that whole great run that he was on. CM Punk for nothing. Apparently, the original idea when CM Punk came in was to have a really long title run. Apparently, he was going to go through everybody and have the title for a while, a bit like a Roman Reigns. That's probably in the bin. Going to go to these comments here. We've got some last comments here. SCW, 7 days ago, I had no idea who he still was. Difference a week can make, all over the headlines. Fair point. He's been more in the headlines than a lot of things we're reading at the moment. West Coast Podcast. Let's also not forget Tony Storm shaded Thunder Rosa injury, and Fanboy Reporters buried the Swerve and Lease victory. The scrum was a mess. Scrums probably won't happen again unless it's with Alvarez and Meltzer, because Tony Khan's really close with them, it seems. I'm a massive fan of Alvarez and Meltzer. I think they do a good job, to be honest. I think they get a lot of heat and stuff like that, but it's not easy when CM Punk's calling you out and you're just doing your job, really. You got anything you want to add on that, Josh or Steve?
I'm shocked that Scrum is even still up on AEW's YouTube page. I'm shocked that they haven't pulled it.
Is it actually still up on there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, it's there. It's there, yeah.
That is a bit weird, isn't it? You'd have thought that would be straight down and all this other stuff, but then all the fighting and that lot happened after. But you still got CM Punk bearing you sort of on camera, haven't you?
Well, I was going to bring up too, because we were talking about the Jacques Rougeau Dynamite Kid fight. Fights in wrestling happen. Like for me, it's not so much just the fight. Like if that's all that happened, I feel like this would be nothing compared to the PR nightmare that the Scrum was. It's everything in combination. But for me, yeah, as a promoter, I would be much more concerned about a wrestler publicly knocking everything I'm doing over two of my guys getting into a fight. Because wrestling, I mean, a lot of testosterone, a lot of stress. It's very political. Fights are going to happen in wrestling. So for me, yeah, the fight is not as big a deal unless it's taken in conjunction with everything going on in the attitude of CM Punk.
What I've got to say as well, like, give her a credit. You know Jamie Hayter really, really well, didn't you? You used to work with them, big league wrestling, stuff like that. Yeah. All this sort of stuff of people speaking out, she seems to conduct herself really, really well. Like, it just shows you the character she portrays. She doesn't seem to be anything like that in AEW. I think she's really, really improved. That's a totally different tangent. Are you impressed with her and how she's developed as a wrestler since your time in BLW? I know it's kind of off topic, but we're kind of talking about
BLW absolutely. Briefly. Yeah, I mean, she has really put in a grind. She knew the type of star she could be. And it's great to see her work pay off. Yeah, I mean, she was one of those to where, because I mean, the thing about her, and we are going off on it, but I'm fine going off on this tangent. She was primarily kind of a valet when we first started booking her. She was with Psycho Phillips as his, outside help and stuff like that. And Lewis was one of those who looked at her and said, "This girl has star power. Like we could," and we did. We sort of built our women's division around her, and it's nice to see that other people have seen the same thing about her, because yeah, she's still got so much more potential than even what she's done. That's the thing.
It's amazing when you look back at the talent roster you had as well. On a different tangent, the amount of people that went through your roster that went on. Matt Riddle's one, a few other people that MVP, quite a few others that started in your promotion have gone on to do different things. But back on topic of AEW, I guess, and stuff like that. Got a few comments here as well with this one. SCW, Jamie Hayter is the one to end Jay Cargill's undefeated streak. Good shout. I'd like to see that as well. Shout. I think it's a good shout as well. Noob and Co. Hello. Hi, Noob. You just joined us at the end. Thank you for coming in saying hello, though. I hope you're well. And have we got anything else we want to add before we end this impromptu stream? It's been great to catch up with you guys and hear your thoughts.
No, go for it, mate.
No problem at all. So thank you all for watching. This has been Jonesy Chats Wrestling, joined by Josh and NX Steve. We should do more of these more often. So it shouldn't just be that AEW's falling down and WWE have had a fantastic pay-per-view. But perhaps we'll look to convene. How do you guys feel about doing one maybe next month again? Unless something crazy happens in the meantime.
Dude, I am up for it and down with it.
It's always good to hear both your opinions. Thank you all for watching and have a good evening. And if you've enjoyed the video, please give us a thumbs up. Let us know in the comments below who should go, CM Punk or should CM Punk stay? There we go. Thank you for watching, guys. Have a good evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.